answers. I'd be happy to, if anybody has questions and want to step outside to talk further. I know you all have to carry on with your meeting. But I appreciate you all allowing me to come here today on behalf of the Independent Oil and Gas Association. If you all have any questions, I'd be happy to do what I can to answer them.
I have a question.
Okay.
You mentioned this cracker plant. You mentioned after that becomes available that there will be other industries that will survive. Manufacturing industries, I think you said.
Right.
Can you explain that to me a little bit better?
Well, what comes out of those plants is basically the building blocks for everyday plastics. And so there will be facilities that will want to locate close to it to reduce transportation costs. It'll be there basically close to that ethane cracker to get their products to make whatever elements that we use in everyday life in plastics.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay.
You've presented a rather standard view of the industry, yeah, pretty much what you could get from internet or any one of dozens of newspaper articles. The picture that a lot of people are seeing is that it is an industry which is driven by boyish exuberance. They have far overbuilt the demand for the product. And so they have hundreds of wells around over the United States that are sitting idle because there's no place for it to do. They're looking very hard for a place to sell that, and they want to sell it overseas because it's going to bring money over there, far more money than it will in the United States, and it will cost us more if it goes overseas also. Just like our labor is being dragged down by foreign labor, our gas prices are going to be dragged up by foreign prices. You haven't said anything at all about how this is going to affect the people in the counties. Not one word.
Or the environment.
Now, let me ask you a question. In 15 or 20 years ago, 15 or 20 years from now, when this drilling program is completed, how much area is going to be occupied by wells, roads, pipelines, compressor stations, and all the rest of the infrastructure that goes with this industry in this county?
I have not done that kind of study. I can't tell you that.
Okay, I can. It's an easy thing to calculate. It's pretty well known that it takes about 9 or 10 acres for every well pad, and that there'll be a well pad for every square mile. Okay, so if we assume 10 acres, and there are 640 acres in a square mile, and you multiply that by the 320 square miles in this county, it means that there's going to be 5 square miles paved over in Doddridge County alone. Your industry is very unpopular with people that live on the land. They're unapproachable. People feel like they run over them. They feel like they're taking advantage of them every chance they get. And I hope that you will take some of this back with you to the people that sent you.
I'd like to make a comment. Everything we've heard has been about the economic value, and that's one of the things I find a problem when I've started researching this. I've only lived in West Virginia for 6 years, and moving here I was well aware that the oil and gas industry is a way of life and a very important part of our culture, and that's a good thing since, you know, we do have the natural resources in the state. What I see, though, are a lot of problems that have continued a pattern of the past, the boom and bust period, like with the coal industry and what have you, that it sounds good for a while, everybody's happy, everybody's working, and then these companies pull out with their huge profits, and we're still a welfare state, and people are dying of cancer and all kinds of other related industry illnesses. And what concerns me is this is going to happen all over again, and also the two main issues. For one thing, the Marcellus is totally different than what we've seen in the past drilling. These conventional wells going down 2,000 feet. Maybe if something went wrong, it impacted that immediate piece of property, owners, land or what, but it didn't impact the whole community, your neighbors, and that's different now. And we are running into problems where we're not being kept in the loop by these huge corporate giants that come in here, mostly bringing out-of-state workers. They say they create local jobs, but we haven't seen a whole lot of evidence of that. But not only that, everything we hear about how great it is from the oil and gas lobby, and I've been following this for some time, but it's about the economy. Well, even in your presentation, you mentioned nothing about the environment, and we're living it. And we're hearing the water contamination cases and our properties devalued and such. And one of the things I'd like to ask you, for example, is because this state has not done anything to support environmental research, and since you are a representative of the oil and gas alliance in this beneath the surface, how receptive do you think your organization would be with working with the research community? And I ask that because we have a program that's underway called the West Virginia Host Farms Program. Jot it down if you want to look it up on the internet, www.wvhostfarms.org. And our goal is to balance the picture, because everything we hear is how economically great it is, but we also need to know how environmentally safe it is, and we don't know that. And it's an unknown territory what's going on with this Marcellus drilling. The other thing I'd like to see visited is the fact that landowners who don't own their mineral rights, before a surface owner could count on, if they were going to get drilled on, maybe a quarter acre of their land disturbed, and they might get some damages for trees down and such like that. But basically that was all they got, because they don't own their minerals. Now, this push for Marcellus, and we've seen in the courthouse in the month of October alone, $30,000 in Xeroxing fees, most of which for abstractors looking for their next place to target. And the people who are surface owners, and I am one, and that's why we're working together, we have no say about where you're drilling, and we have to yield our properties and still pay taxes on the property with the well pads sitting on them. And the same token, we put up with the dust and the pollution. We have no link or no pathway of communication with the oil and gas companies. And if you're a coalition representing them, perhaps you can do something that might open that door better. The big thing is these leases. They're working off of leases that were negotiated 50, 100 years ago or more. And there's a concept that I think needs to be explored, and I'd love to see if these companies might be willing to enter into negotiations about that. They came into this state, bought up these mineral rights 50, 100 years ago on these old leases. These poor old farmers, or most of these people, or what, sign these leases for their mineral rights, maybe $300 for the lease, free gas, deeded free gas. I have it myself on the piece of property I bought, so I'm happy with it. But that was done back when drilling was with a rig that was horse-drawn, and very little environmental footprint. But yet these companies are exercising these same leases to come in here and take 7 to 8 acres of our land, put a Marcellus well in it, and inject 6 million gallons of water into that well, 5% sand, maybe 1% or 0.5% chemicals. But if you look at 6 million gallons in one well, that is 60,000 gallons of chemicals going into the ground in these injection wells. What goes down is eventually going to come up. I have a lot of research that I've been compiling in the last 6 months that casings are not as reliable as people think. There's a doctor, Tony Angrafia, you might have heard of, that's done a lot of research at Cornell, and also James Northrup, who has an excellent article, a 30-year veteran from an engineering environment in the oil and gas, that knows that these casings are not going to hold in the long term. So there are many environmental concerns, but yet the oil and gas lobby, in working with the Marcellus, well, working with Tomlin really, but working with the Marcellus Advisory Task Force that was supposed to give us some landowner rights, which in my opinion, were removed in this, on the December 14th bill that was passed. It was totally gutted of what was originally proposed. There is nothing there that says they're going to protect our environment and protect the people here, their health, their safety and welfare, and the value of their lands. And not only that, provide permanent jobs. Not just leave us as a welfare state when they take their billions, sell their gas to China, and move out. So do you guys even address that, or is it all about how much you can bring this infrastructure in that's all, going to send money through your pipelines to whatever for all the profits? What's in it for us?
Well, that's a big question.
Yes, it is. And we want a big answer.
Yeah,
Increased air pollution, polluted water,
Yep.
more crappier roads to drive on because of the heavyweight equipment that's gone on. One, noise pollution, and an assortment. But one of my big things is who ends up paying? Like, what's the weight rating on our one-lane bridges that they're hauling, what, 1,000 or 1,600 trips coming in with the water and the other stuff? I'm not sure if that figure's right, but our one-lane bridges and our two-lane roads were not set up for this kind of traffic. And the speed with which these folks drive, when you're coming around a curve, it's not safe. I wouldn't want a young, inexperienced driver out there, let alone myself, or it's really scary. And I've already seen the paved road I go on starting to deteriorate because of drilling that they're doing in Tyler County that they're bringing in over Flint. And that doesn't include the pipe. You're talking about the pipeline infrastructure.